Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Services Board meeting of October the 23rd, 2024. We're all here, we're not all here, but Member Wiersma is absent with notice. So that's our roll call taken care of. And I'd ask if we could have a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Member Hall, seconded by the Mayor. All those in favor? It's approved. Any declarations of pecuniary interest today? Okay, thank you. I see none. And then we'll go on to the reading and correction or approval of the minutes, and those are the general meeting minutes of September the 17th, 2024. We've all looked at. I'd be looking for a motion to accept those minutes. Moved by Member Hahn, second by Member Hall. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving along quickly here. Number 5 are communications. And we have several items here, and I guess we can just take them in order. Would anyone like to speak to 511 Victim Support Grant Call for Applications? Member on. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask the Chief in regards to the grant for victim support applications. I know that on our monthly stats, and this month it was 28 intimate partner violence situations that were being dealt with, and I've seen an increase, and it's likely not only in our area but many areas, and I wondered if Strathroy might be partnering with, for instance, the Women's Rural Resource Centre to apply for this grant. And is it the first time this grant was being offered, a victim support grant?
So a great question. So through the chair to Member Hahn, yes, we are actively reviewing the grant application, making some reach outs to some of those partners, including the shelter here in town, along with some other agencies that obviously help support victims of crime. So we're just, again, in that early stages of developing who those partnerships are going to be with, because obviously the grant talks about having a partner as part of that application process. I think you are very correct in that the province has become very acute to the issues of domestic violence. And certainly, I think at previous meetings we've seen correspondences requesting, and certainly at the municipal level, requests for clearly identifying that domestic violence in our communities is at a very serious level, and that all levels of government need to be aware of that, make that recognition, and then obviously start making strides to work towards eliminating violence in domestic situations. Your last question, has grant funding been made available? It has in previous years, not for quite some time that I remember. But again, I think that the interest and the awareness of the height of domestic violence has sort of spurred, I think, the province to re-examine how they help fund solutioning to eliminating and reducing as best as we can instances of intimate partner violence.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that item? Okay, then move on to 5.1.2. Nominations for the 2024-25 Attorney General's Victim Services Awards of Distinction. Does anyone care to speak to that? Moving along, 5.13 Israel Hamas conflict enhanced patrol measures for upcoming anniversary events. Does anyone wish to speak to that item? Okay, seeing none, then I guess what we require is a motion that the communication items 5.1 to 5.3 be received for information.
There's still a couple more items.
Still what?
There's still a couple more items right here.
Oh, I only have.
The schedule.
I'm sorry. Pardon me. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just continue on here. I was just going for those. Okay. 5.2, Inspector of Policing. A message from the Inspector General of Policing of Ontario regarding the National Police and Peace Officers Memorial. Anyone, the Mayor, would like to speak to that?
Yeah, more just a request to the Chief and the Secretary. If those kind of correspondence come along, I would have liked to have posted something about that. So if something comes like that, if I could just get it so I could post something about it, because I wasn't aware of it. I should be, but if something comes where I can talk about it, I think that was an important, important day, weekend, so just a request.
Okay, thank you. And finally, 5.3, the 2025 schedule of meetings, which we see there. 2025 will soon be upon us, and that's just the scheduled meetings. Okay, with that said then, Innika, carry on.
I just was looking at the schedule. I always put them in my itinerary. They're all Tuesdays. I have no problem with that. Often we do Wednesdays for like the Family Day weekend or the Victoria Day weekend, but I'm not asking for a change, but I wanted to make sure they're all Tuesdays this year. Okay.
Yes, they are. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, and then I guess the recommendation is that communication items 5.1 to 5.3 be received for information. Do I have a mover? Member Hall, second by Member Hahn. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And let's see, moving along. Yes?
Just a motion to approve the schedule of meetings.
Oh, and can we have a separate motion to approve the schedule of meetings? Moved by the mayor, second by Member Hall. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for keeping me in line there. And let me see here. Now we're on to 6, review of monthly police service reports. And at this point, I'll turn the floor over to the chief, and he can present to us those things which he thinks are important, and we can ask questions.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I think I'm going to default to, sort of providing that the reports there are, have provided information about obviously monthly stats and activities. It's certainly open to taking any questions from any of the members that choose to ask anything.
Okay, so we'll go through them in order then. Are there any questions from board members regarding item 6.1, monthly activity reports? The mayor.
Thank you, Chair, through you, and I've spoken to the chief about this. This is not particularly about the stats that were presented, but just a comment on willing feedback that I think stats that are more relevant to our policing may help. And I'll give you an example, because I know they do this in London, is response time. You know, we've had comments, concerns about policing in Ward 2, and I just think those kind of stats, they will either do one of two things. They will show we're doing a great job, which I think we are, or if there's a little bit of a lag, they may help in justification why the chief needs more support, more resources. But I just asked the chief if we could look at that kind of a stat that shows either response time, that's one, and even the number of hours patrolled. I don't know if that's asking too much in each ward, but I do think response time is an important one, Chief, because it shows the effectiveness. So just out there for comment.
So excellent comment, and so through the chair to the board. Last week we had our Zone 6 OACP, OAPSB meeting in Chatham. There was a presentation by the Inspector of Policing who have announced that they are embarking on looking at response time as part of one of their assessment metrics as to determining how policing services are responding to reported crimes in their community. So you're not the only one sort of making that inquiry about that metrics and what it will show. The deputy and our communication supervisor are both at an Optic meeting this week in Toronto, which is the policing cooperative that manages our record system and our CAD system, which is obviously vital for our dispatching. I've asked them to hopefully come back with some analytical opportunities to be able to draw out that data of our activities that we are doing. I know Anna anecdotally, I know that we are doing things that we need to be doing to be out in our community and enhancing community safety. What we need to sort of fine tune is that ability to tell our story by using the data that we are producing. And so that may require us looking at some analytic tools to be able to connect some of those dots to make the picture a lot more clear. I had a great opportunity this past Friday. One of the council members from the municipality had asked to come in and speak to me, and we had some great discussions about our need to tell our story a little bit better. You know, I did have an opportunity to sort of share some of our enforcement data, particularly in regards to our traffic enforcement. And it's no surprise to the board here that 3/4 of our enforcement activities are occurring in Ward 2. So when we are writing 1,200 tickets, more or less to this point in the year, 75% of those are happening in Ward 2. We just need to be able to tell that story and demonstrate where those activities are occurring, when they are occurring, you know, to kind of help sort of just paint a clearer picture of how often we are in particularly Ward 2, and what that means to community members down there, the reasons why we're down there. So again, by utilizing maybe some better analytical tools, maybe a little more social media or traditional media sort of coverage will help sort of, as I say, just enlighten the local constituents so that they have an understanding of what our focus is and where we are spending that time.
Thanks, I appreciate the answer, thank you.
And to be fair to the chief, I believe that we have had graphics demonstrating exactly what the chief just said about 3/4 of the tickets being written in Ward 2, and that those stats have come to this board and they have gone to council. And I believe did they also, chief, correct me if I'm wrong, did they appear on the website at one point, the Strathroy-Caradoc Police website? I'm not sure if they were put there.
Yeah, through the chair to the board, they did appear there. And again, I had sort of committed to trying to bring that back on a quarterly basis to demonstrate those activities. Yeah,
the recurring question about coverage in Ward 2, I think, can be addressed and has been addressed, but with these graphics. But enhanced graphics that appear on a quarterly basis, I think, that come to the board and council and go on the website, I think will demonstrate exactly what the chief is saying, that the efforts are there to make sure the coverage in Ward 2 is absolutely as it needs to be, and having analytical tools that allow maybe a greater breakdown as to why the police services there may help. Right? And that would be appreciated.
If I may, just to continue on with a bit of an explanation as to even some discussions you know, that I've had with the mayor and some others about additional ways to enhance our activities in the community, elevate the perception, and seeing us in the community is about you know, exploring the opportunity of relocating our work area from the Mount Bridges fire station. And is there a space that is a little more present on the main street of Adelaide Road, and utilizing some space at the library if there is a potential to do that. It being a municipally owned property, will it increase our visibility when our members are not mobile but actually at the location? Again, just to enhance that visibility in the community. The Mount Bridges Fire Hall is an excellent location. Again, we use it as our backup location for our communication center. But unless you are pulling down Bowen Street and perhaps even driving by the Mount Bridges Fire Hall, you may not even see or notice that one of our patrol vehicles is parked there. The other location, a little more higher visibility, does that sort of just increase that that recognition of when we are in the community? That, again, as I stated, unless you're turning off that road, you may not see us.
Thank you. Member Hahn.
Following up on the chief's comments about exploring other opportunities, I know that I've also seen, and we're talking about speed reduction, and I know that many of the tickets are on the major roads, but reducing speed in certain areas or certain communities, I've seen a lot of those pylons that, and I'm sure you have seen too, especially in London, that they go right in the middle of the road, and you could only use them, let's say, during maybe the good weather months, but I mean, they say it's 50 kilometers per hour, and you can't really speed down there because those pylons are in the middle. And I was wondering if any of those areas that we're talking about, or high-speed traffic areas, might be, it may be beneficial from some of those type of, I call them pylons. They likely have a different word.
So through the chair to Member Hahn, I had a really good joke about the Toronto Defence last night when you mentioned pylons, but I won't go there. So it's a very, very excellent point you make. And a lot of those discussions have occurred at the traffic committee level. I know currently, and I think it was at the bequest of the county, some of those actual knockdown center road signs are actually up on Glendon Drive currently.
Oh, are they?
And I know the first time I drove by them, very effective in making you aware, not only of the speed limit, but as a traffic calming tool, they're very, very effective. And so certainly we have had, and again, I don't want to speak for the mayor, but at meetings of the traffic committee, we've talked to the manager of the roads department for the municipality about expanding the use of those devices. In particularly, we've identified, I think, some of the roads that are in our school areas as a way to, again, bring further awareness that motorists need to slow down. And I know that in other municipalities they are used, and again, having seen and driven by them, I do believe they are very, very effective. So that's a long answer to get to. I think they are a very great tool, and we will continue to explore the opportunities to bring those to our community and put them in the right spots to have the right effect.
Thank you very much. Moving on, item 6.2, Community Services Report, September 2024. Any comments or questions on that item?
Sorry.
Member Hahn.
I may have overlooked asking some questions under 6.1. I never know where they all are. My question, and this is to the chief, is in regards to the CID report, and it's about the street crime. They were quite busy, and they had a serious situation they were attending to. I was really interested in the rope squad. And I'm not as familiar with the rope squad, but I do understand that it's repeat offenders, and it's a provincial, I believe a provincial department that did apprehend that second person in that quite serious situation. Can you let me know a little bit more about the rope squad? And does London have one, or is it more from the OPP?
So through the chair to Member Hahn. So the ropes squad, I can get the first two letters right. It's the repeat offender parole enforcement team. It is a OPP-led initiative. So a couple years ago, after some tragic situations involving officer-involved shootings, there was sort of a reinvigoration of the rope squad and utilizing them and ensuring they were adequately staffed. Their mandate is to identify targets or suspects who are either out on conditions and are wanted, and dedicate resources to go and to attempt to locate to effect arrest. So They are an investigative team that we have access to. So in this particular situation, it was our members conducting surveillance on a person or persons of interest regarding drug activity. And while doing that, this stolen vehicle arrived. And it was during that interaction where the actions of the person in the stolen vehicle drove into one of our vehicles and then fled the scene. So we obviously had some heightened interest in ensuring that we apprehended those parties. So we were able to utilize again the resources that the Rope Squad provides, and they were able to go and locate the one gentleman in St. Thomas based on some information that we were able to provide that we had received. So they're very active provincially, and they tend to target the best of the best as far as those people who need to be brought into custody.
Where would their local office be? Like, do they operate out of every OPP, or how do they operate?
So they're seconded to the team. I think, again, as a provincial team, they'll probably have 4 to 5 different investigative teams. They're probably based regionally. I'm not sure exactly where in this region they are. Probably safe to assume out of the London area. But they travel wherever they need to go to try to apprehend wanted people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So then again, that we finished with 6.1.
Okay.
Member Hahn.
I'm trying to remember where this one is. The crime reports, is that under 6.1 also? Where it gives the theft under, I don't know what that limit was no more, the theft under. And this past month, in I guess it would be September, there were 23 thefts under that limit. And I'm assuming, I don't know, are they, I've noticed in some of the updates on Facebook, etc., more retail stores are being targeted. And I wondered if you could maybe comment to that, Chief. But also, I was wondering if you're going to see an uptake maybe in, now that convenience stores are selling beer, alcohol, would that potentially increase also that retail store number or theft under?
So through the chair to Member Hahn, I would say a majority of those theft unders that we have reported here are involving a lot of our major retail outlets. I could probably go into about a 10-minute sort of dialogue as to the socioeconomic issues that sort of lead people to that. I don't think that's what you're asking. So we've been trying to work with, and the timing is pretty good in that this week there was a toolkit that was released through the OACP about retail thefts, and you know, the partnerships and enhancing those partnerships with policing services and retail outlets as to how they can hopefully help target harden their premises to reduce the amount of times that they are being victimized for thefts. Ideas being adding or enhancing video recordings within their store, changing some of their retail practices, about locking mechanisms so that if you bypass a point of payment, a door won't let you exit the store, better education or the presence of security personnel, especially for some of the larger retail outlets who maybe have the means to bring in someone to walk the floor as a security officer. You know, early alertness to suspicious behaviors to, you know, kind of thwart the theft from occurring before they actually leave the premises. so we're trying to sort of do that proactive, that educational piece. But I don't know that you will ever totally eliminate, activities by community members in stealing, especially if it's products that, in their opinion, are items that they need to help survive. So if it's food or personal products, those types of things are hard to sort of, eliminate from occurring ever. So, we're working on that hand. We're also, when possible, when we have interactions with people, if charges are the appropriate path to land on, then that's where we land. But we also have access to, and will divert people through different diversion type programs that may offer some sort of opportunity to repay the debt in regards to the theft, but also may access or open up the potential for additional social services that they may need. Perhaps it's in relation to addictions or other means that may help them get them back onto a path that will move them away from criminal behavior.
Thank you.
If we're finished with 6.1. 6.2, Community Service Reports, September 2024. Any comments or questions on that item? Seeing none. 6.3, Overtime Reports, September 2024. Any comments or questions? 6.4, Use of Force Reports, September 2024. 6.5, Freedom of Information Reports, September 2024. And 6.6, the 2024 budget update, police service profit and loss, and PP19. The mayor has a question or a comment.
Well, I'll ask it now, Chair. It'll be, and actually, it's good that Director Dakin's here. So I was gonna ask it on the proposed police budget. Where on any of the line items can I see the use of town services? So I'm looking, is there in fact a line item that shows where the police service pays the town for all the services that we use from the municipality, whether it's HR, IT, or finance? Is there a line item somewhere where, maybe they'll ask it now, I was gonna ask it on the budget, but.
I can, through the chair to the mayor, I can start sort of down this pathway. So in our IT expenses, so under the 55001, and then it works down, there is some expenses that the services provided specifically by the IT. Some of that expenses come out of those budget lines. In particularly the contracted IT, some of the communication maintenance is work that is provided by the IT department. Specifically, communication maintenance is in reference to our 911 center. So there is some of that work in those expenses that return through that. And I do believe that even through the first information technology, that some expenses related to work from the IT department is paid in there. In relation to HR and or even services that the finance director in his office, there's nothing that really sort of flows out of our operating budget into those areas.
Chair, if you indulge me, I think it's an important conversation to have, and I'll explain why. I know I go on ad nauseum about the separation between the police board and the municipality, that we are, have to stand on our own two legs and be financially viable. And I'm looking at Matt. I know Middlesex County, there are flow-throughs that happen with MLPS, so the county, you can look on the MLPS budget and see an expense item where they pay back for the services of the county. It's something I think we need to look at, and whether now or in the future, to ensure that the true cost of our policing is reflected and that the municipality is made whole for their services, right? I think it's good that we utilize the services, and chief and director, there's only one taxpayer, so really you're moving it from one pocket to the other, but I think it's important in terms of transparency and accountability and just to show the true cost of our policing. And at some point in time, we'll talk about a servicing agreement, but just to forewarn, when it comes in front of the town, I will be putting on my town hat and asking that question about the cost of policing. So apologize for the long-winded question.
So through the chair to the mayor, so there is a servicing agreement actually already in place on the IT piece. That was before we had the HR department. So we do have a servicing agreement with that, and that's what those two numbers within the budget, the 45,000.
Okay.
So in 2024 it would have been 45, and in 2024 it's the 40. So 85,000 in the current budget year is for municipal services in the IT. There is no what I'll call servicing agreement or sort of allocation of expenses as far as HR and sort of finance oversight kind of stuff. But there is a servicing agreement, and we can make sure that that gets to the board.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, and maybe that could become a priority for the next budget year, that service agreements in those two areas be figured out, and down the road we have a more refined sense of what those expenses are to reflect the true cost of policing. But I think it's a progressive thing. We've got it for IT, so let's see if we can get it for HR, and then if we can get it for HR, let's see if we can get it, and then it just gets a little more refined. So I think that's an achievable goal for the maybe the next year. So the recommendation here is that the monthly reports 6.1 to 6.6 be received for information. Moved by Member Hahn, seconded by Member Hall, and all those in favor? Carried. And now we move to item 7.1, item from the chief, proposed 2025 police services budget, POL 2024-22. And I guess we'll just start by just recommendation the board receive it for information. Mover, Member Hall, seconded by the mayor. All those in favor? Carried. And so that is on the floor for the moment, and we'll see the second recommendation after the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. We'll maybe just pause and does everyone have it up on their device? Okay. I was just going to say if I'm not sure if the board secretary wishes to put it up on the main screen for those viewing at home. So certainly for the board members, you've seen this format before. What you'll see there is actually a sort of 6-year review of where the budgets have been. I think most times you look for a 5-year one, but we had an extra column, so we just kept it at 6. So the opening area is our revenue section. That's the very first section there. I'm just going to highlight a couple of areas where there's been some growth, some expansion, and I'll call it some year-over-year sort of returns. So you'll see in the grant section, we are in year 3 of 2 grants. The Provincial Local Priorities Grant, which is secured funding of $140,522. And then at the very bottom, there's the Provincial Priorities Grant as well of $72,000. Those again, 2025 represents the last year of those grants. And obviously, we're hopeful that the province will renew those granting opportunities in future years going out. In the Middlesex County Fire Dispatch, we've added an extra little name, the CERB, C-E-R-B, fall of 2024. You'll see that there is a substantial increase in revenue in that budget line, and that's in regards to a new contract that the board in the Middlesex County entered into in the fall of 2024, where we are now providing 911 services to county residents, which has allowed us to obviously bring in some additional revenue for those services. We are also renewing a secondment opportunity for one of our members, and then that is in the line 60756, which is that full cost recovery for salaries and benefits. And then, of course, the last one I'll talk about is the provincial MCERT and auto theft grants. There's 2 separate grants, which are fairly substantial of $230,000. So we're trying to squeeze revenue sources where we can. The increased services in our communication bureau obviously is front and center, able to sort of offset some of that. So you'll see that the 2025 taxation request is $7.3 million, which gives a taxation increase there of 2.95. So that's on the revenue side. When I take you to the general expenses, and again, the expenses are broken down into operating silos, I'll call them. There's the general expenses, phone expenses, vehicle expenses, building expenses, IT, operation, and then there's the next area is board expenses, police administration expenses, police uniform expenses, and then finally civilian expenses. A couple areas in the expense area where I will sort of just highlight some of the changes. I've introduced into the police building expenses under the maintenance/annex repayment area, some increase in expense dollars there. And part of this has to do with some discussions I've had with the Director of Finance in relation to creating a repayment expense, an ongoing operation expense, to help start to provide monies to repay for the capital expansion of the building. Another area of expansion is if I go to the police uniform expenses, I'm looking to expand our full-time uniform expense by 1 additional officer, and that's leads our full-time expenses at 4.1 for the year. We're actually in a recruiting stage right now where we are looking to hire a new recruit and an experienced officer, but those are both replacement members. I have one member resigning to move to a different policing organization, and the second member is this secondment opportunity at the Ontario Police College. So the additional full-time member I'll be looking to add in 2025 will be a brand new recruit, which the board is obviously aware comes in at the least amount from a salary benefit cost. I'm also looking to add an additional civilian member, a second clerk position. This is being driven by the increase in records that we are creating from our frontline staff and the use of body-worn cameras. Every investigation, we are obviously capturing digital evidence that because of our requirement to meet disclosure protocols and legislative requirements in regards to ensuring people's personal privacy and personal information is reviewed before it ends up going to a court proceeding. We are looking to add that second civilian member to help process that increased information. And I've also built in our civilian expenses costing for an IT position. So sort of what the mayor had sort of brought up forward. Within that salary line, even though we use the services of municipal IT staff, I've built in what that salary cost would be if that person was an actual member of the police service. So again, that's sort of just that whole pre-planning to ensure that we are being accurate and reflective of what our total cost of operating as a police service is. I'll maybe stop or pause there, and if there's any questions from the board.
Thank you, Chief, for that presentation. At this time, are there any questions by members of the board regarding the proposed 2025 budget as presented? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Just for the other members of the board and for Bill, I'd sent a news report to both the chief and the chair of the Napanee Police Department, or OPP. They're facing a 23% increase in their budget, and their Napanee called it as holy moly moments. So this is a pretty responsible budget, but I do have a couple of questions. Where in the budget could we find the salary for the secretary? Is there a flow through from the police board? So I just, Chair, my reason for asking that is, again, it's the separation, but about accountability and transparency, and that also that, you know, that as a board, we pay for the service, so we should be allotted a certain amount of time of the secretary, so it's never in question. Again, it's up to the board, but again, it's a full transparency thing for me that we allocate our expenses. And then this might be my final one, Chair, is on the building. I mean, I think this board would like to see the annex go through and repayment. I know it's on the municipality to make that happen, but any contribution that the board could make. But I'm going to ask Mr. Dakin, is it appropriate for a police service board or a police service to make a contribution towards a building when it's the municipality's responsibility to provide the building? I don't know if that question makes sense. I'm looking at the increased revenue you're getting from the SERV program, whatever it's called, right? Is it responsible or appropriate for the police service to use their dollars they gain in revenue to help offset the cost of a building? Well, if I articulated that properly, but I know what the responsibility of the municipality is.
So if I may, before I refer to the Director of Finance, through the chair to the mayor. So the Police Service Board expenses, I haven't really provided a lot of details in regards to that, and that really is something that you know, there may need to be some adjustments, and I can certainly have that discussion with the Director of Finance if the board would like to see some remuneration for the Police Services Board Secretary to also, you know, that expense to show up within that budget area. We can certainly make that change. And again, and there may be some additional additions of expenses that you'd like to see on the police service board, part of the budget. That certainly is you know, your discretion to sort of change that as you see fit. I hadn't talked about the annex yet as part of the overall budget. So obviously, my ask is not only that you'll receive the operating budget for information, but that it will ultimately be approved by the board. And the overall budget, including the building annex, would be part of the overall budget approved by the board. So the estimate numbers has sort of fell around 9 million for the building annex as it was presented to the board, I guess early in 2024, I think, is, if I remember correctly, when we last sort of visited that. So I would be looking and requesting the board approve not only the operating budget, but also the capital request, which would include the annex, which the board has the ability to make that approval on, which then sends it to the municipality and council for their review and ultimate decision on where you know, they want to see their overall budget go.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to ask, did the mayor want to make a motion for the 2025 budget that the costs of the police secretary be included in the 2025 budget? Is that something that you were asking for this budget?
I would make that motion, Chair.
Okay. Director Dave, you have a point? Oh, before, I get a seconder before.
Yeah.
Can I have a seconder for that? And we have a seconder now that the motion's on the floor. Director Dave, you would like to speak to the motion?
Sorry, so I think it would be prudent then also to add in that HR piece as well and the finance piece. We can sort of work together and try and figure out what that would look like, so it's sort of a all-inclusive as opposed to just singling out the board secretary.
So as a friendly amendment by the finance director.
I'll accept the director's friendly amendment.
I know, exactly. I was going to jump in with that too, but you're absolutely right. But I think for the sake of the clarity that the mayor is seeking to impose on the budget, which I think is a good idea, that if those can be done without too much difficulty, and that could come in. So that would in effect amend this budget to some extent, but we can make that motion, okay? And all those in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. What was the second thing we were talking about now was were there any more questions?
Well, it was just, Chair, what I was trying to get at is the appropriateness and just whose responsibility it is to pay for the annex. So the revenue that you're generating, Mark, through the new call center, right? You know, you may say, or someone may say, well, use that revenue to help offset the payments on the annex, but I don't know if it's appropriate for police service to do that, because I think the CSPA says it's a responsibility of the municipality to provide the building. For, you know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I know Director Dakin has you have a new line item in there towards building, and I'm not sure if that's appropriate for the police board, because it's a municipal responsibility to provide the building.
So the question to the finance director, I suppose.
Through the chair to the mayor, so I would say you do raise a good question. I think it is up to the board to decide what they feel is adequate, or what they feel they would like to do with that. I think a lot of that sort of, not a lot of, but that increased line item was more or less looking at facility, not necessarily directly related to the annexation, but more or less looking at upgrades to different pieces. Obviously, with the increased dispatch, we've got now increased equipment coming in for that. Make sure that those things are built into the budget. So that was not really a direct correlation between setting aside debt payment, but more or less looking at sort of saying, have we got some money set aside for facilities once we're in there?
Member Hahn?
I wouldn't mind it coming back again to the board of the budget that we had approved, but we also talked about reserves. And the police board had a number of years of reserves that we would be looking at allocating to the building project. And I see that as a more defined way versus looking at, a line item with the expansion of the fire calls, but to look at the reserves in each of the years, approving a budget, and if we can still streamline a budget and have some dollars, to me that makes good sense to bring it towards capital. But I think it needs to come back to the board again. I don't know where we are with it, but we had asked a few questions. How would we pay for it? And would we use some of our reserves? And I don't really know if we're all clear on it or we could be updated on it. So maybe a little bit of an update going into the new 2025 year, just so we are very familiar what that upcoming cost and timeline may be.
Through the chair to Member Hahn. So the initial sort of numbers looked at around $10 million, with $1 million sitting in that reserve that was going to be put towards that to sort of reduce it down to about the 9 that we're talking about. We've also, just from the municipal side of things, we also have been collecting DCs. So there will be DCs that will be going towards those debt payments as well. So I think we're sort of talking about originally around a $10 million. There was about $1 million. Those numbers will get finalized as we sort of move forward now. If this project moves forward, then those numbers would get more hardened. But this sort of the initial scope was around a $10 million addition, with $1 million coming from the reserve, reducing it to $9 million that was going to be sort of financed.
Member Hahn?
Outside of those questions, I had 2 questions. Whoops, let me get me back. I saw in the budget, and so this is a question for the chief, the MCRT donation in kind line of $114,000. And as board, we understand that value the MCRT brings to the police operations. I wondered if you could outline, how is that donation in kind value worked out? I'm not familiar with how that works.
So through the chair to Member Hahn, so the grant application seeks to secure funding to help support a mental health crisis worker. That worker is not an employee of the organization, but they obviously retain their alliance to, in this case, CMHA, Canadian Mental Health. So we secure the funding from the province, and we are making that donation in kind or contribution back to CMHA so that they pay their member, but through that grant funding application.
So it's pretty well the amount, the $114,000 offsets the grant monies we receive, pretty well even.
Correct. It's salary funding, some training funding, and some equipment funding.
Perfect. Thank you. My second question was in regards to the board expenses, and I know we're going to make a few changes as we've talked about, including the valued secretary we do share. I also wanted to ask about the remuneration for the board. And I'm looking at this budget for 6 years, and I know it's 6+ years. It has stayed exactly the same amount. And in consideration of the Community Safety and Policing Act, some of the extra training we're now going forward with. I know that this past month we all did about 9 extra hours of training, and of course those are values to us as board members, but they're time commitment. Also, you know, we did the strategic plan this past winter. We're looking at, you know, the capital expansion, which, you know, to give good oversight and governance to, it takes some time. It's just not a quick monthly, okay, we understand. So I would like to ask for a review of that remuneration, knowing that it's been, in this presentation, the same amount for the last 6 years. So I don't know if the finance minister could maybe take a little bit of a look at it and maybe review that when we're making a few changes.
Put that in the form of a motion, I believe, then.
Okay. So do I make an amount, or do I ask?
You're asking for a review, and if you have an amount in mind, you could insert it, but you could just ask for a review of the last 6 years, time commitment, and maybe comparison with other jurisdictions, and maybe there could be a report come back.
Sure. I would like to ask. It would be directed to the finance minister, or is it directed to us? Because we...
I believe we would probably direct that to the chief.
Oh, the chief.
And the chief would work with the finance director to see if that could be done. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, Chair, I think I'd be more than willing to obviously undertake that review. I think if I perhaps work with the board secretary to do a scan of other police service boards to see what sort of value their remuneration is, and then I think bring that back as for information for the board. I'm just, I find it might be a little awkward for me as an employee of the board to come back and report what my governance structure staff should be getting compensated at.
Then I have another approach then. Does member Hahn have a figure in mind? Do you have a percentage figure in mind for the motion?
Sorry, I did not have a percentage figure, but I think it would be good for maybe the board to review it. So I don't know if as chair or you and I with the secretary review that.
Mr. Mayor?
Just for clarification, Annika, are you looking at for the remuneration to the secretary that we pay? Is that what you're?
No, to the board members.
To the board members,
It's
got it,
been
okay.
held, for 6 years, and I think it's 6+ from what
Okay,
I
there you go,
understand.
okay, sorry, yep, yes.
Just in regards to our time commitment, the responsibilities, activities.
The director of finance has a comment.
I wonder if maybe the way to deal with this would be to keep it in correlation with council and the board's remuneration. So the cost of living, for instance. So each year, council would receive a cost of living increase. So maybe it would be best to maybe word some sort of motion that the board, working concert with the council in any increases in council would then be reflected or at least been brought back to this board. I'm not sure how that would work, but maybe that's the simplest way.
I fully support that. I think that's simple. It's everyone will know what that amount would be, and it's just a normal budgeting process. I like that.
So is the motion that the remuneration for police board be linked to the cost of living increases and rise in parallel with council remuneration? Is that the motion?
I would support that motion. If you make it, I would.
I can't make a motion.
Okay, I'll make exactly that motion.
And seconded by member Hall. All those in favor? Carried. All right, so at this point, I just want to clarify then, Normally, we would be recommending the board approve the proposed 2020 police services budget, but we've asked for some amendments in terms of the flow-through monies, I think, with the municipality. So should we perhaps just maybe forestall approving the proposed 2025 police service budget until the next meeting when we see the amended version, or do you wish to do it now in anticipation of what those changes will be? I'm just the chair. Yes?
I'll make a motion to defer to the next meeting, Chair.
Okay, we defer to the next meeting, and seconded by Member Hall. All those in favor? Thank you. And then, and a piece of housekeeping then, that is the entire budget so far. That would be operating and capital. But I guess we're going to be looking for clarification on capital in the near future regarding the annex. I know that there was money in reserves. Some of that money has been pulled from reserves and spent on planning and engineering blueprints and stuff like that. And I guess I'd like to have an update on how much we have in reserves, and if appropriate at this board, what's available in DCs and where we are in terms of the dollar figure for the expansion of the police center, because this, of course, will be going to council, and it is in both the strategic plans of the police board and the municipality. So I'm just wondering, you know, for the next meeting, is it possible to get a clear vision of what those numbers are, so that when we pass on the police board budget for 2025 as a police board, we fully understand our operating, but we understand the capital request that we're making, and whether that capital request is being made over 1 or 2 years in terms of clarity for when it arrives in front of council, because I think this could be an interesting discussion point at council. I don't know if that's a motion, if that could just be instruction to staff. I don't know what the board thinks. So I'm just speaking as chair. Does the board approve of that? Member Hahn?
I absolutely approve of reviewing and recapping and understanding our direction.
Okay, so if that's okay, that'd be wonderful, because I just don't want our budget to leave here without us having a clear-eyed view of what we're putting in front of council, because when it does appear at council, I believe as chair, I'm going to be receiving some questions regarding this, in as much as questions can be raised at council regarding police budgets, right? Mr. Mayor.
Would you be willing to, sorry, Chair, would you be open to a friendly amendment with one question?
Absolutely.
I am curious whether or not if it is a responsibility of the police service and the police board to worry about how it will be paid for. Like that question still remains to me, if it in fact is a question for the police board. And I know I tried to look, Chief and Director, in the CSPA if there was language regarding policing and providing of buildings, because I do think that's municipality's responsibility. So somehow I would like that question, whether or not the board, I know it's good to know, Chair, whether or not, you know, we can get through, but I just have a feeling it's not the responsibility of the board to worry about how it gets paid for. That in fact, it's the municipality, and I think of our neighbors, London, they've asked for training centers and that, and I don't recall their board, you know, worrying about how it's going to be paid for. They threw it back at London City Council. This is what we need. You figure out how to pay for it. And I guess that's kind of my starting point, Chair, if we need to even worry about that it's in fact municipality's responsibility. And if I can get clarification on that may lead the whole discussion, and I apologize for that, Chair. To me, it's a very important question.
No, you make a good point, and I mean that's a discussion perhaps we can have at our next meeting.
Right.
And maybe we can also take a look at what happened when we built the present, office, back in 1999.
Yeah.
But again, we all acknowledge there's only one taxpayer.
That's
any money that we do have in reserves ultimately came from the taxpayer. So, and maybe we can take a look what's happening in other jurisdictions as well. But that discussion would be one for the next meeting. That'd be grand. So we've deferred.
Sorry, Chair, if
Yeah.
I may, I
Yes, okay.
just to add
Yes, Chief.
on to, is the board interested to hear from the consultant who has done the legwork so far on the building annex to come back and just provide an update on as to what additional cost may look like, sort of in general terms, because we haven't gone to that next stage, very defined costing for the building, but at least to give the board that sort of generalized view that it's been 6, 7, 8 months, and this is what your potential sort of changes in cost may be if it's a 2% sort of difference from where we were before, just so that the board has that awareness of that line of sight.
Well, I think that it'd be prudent for us to have that information before passing anything on to council, so that'd be appreciated. And when that can be scheduled, if it can be for the next meeting, fantastic. But it'd be great if it happened before we move the budget on to council. Thank you for that recommendation, Chief. If that's it for items under the proposed 2025 police services budget, I think we've done all the recommendations under there to deferment. So we move on to number 8, reports from departments. 8.1, updated job description, police services, board secretary, HR 202420. And the recommendation is that the report, HR 2024-20, updated job description, police services, board secretary, dated October 23rd, 2024, be received for information further. Further, that the board accept and approve the attached draft job description, police board secretary. But I have a mover and a seconder just to get it on the floor. Member Hahn, Member Hall, Member Hahn, and we'll just pause for a second for discussion before I call the vote. Are there any comments or questions about this item? It's pretty straightforward. With that said, all those in favor? And it is approved. We're now number 9, inquiries or comments by members. We'll start with the mayor.
Nothing, I think we said not today.
And Member Hahn,
Nothing.
Member Hall.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay, and now we go to in-camera matters. The board may move into closed session to discuss the following: one item in accordance with the municipality's procedure bylaw to approve in-camera meeting minutes, and one item pursuant to section 44(2)B of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 as amended regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including members of the police service or any other employees of the board. The recommendation is that the board move into closed session at 11:10 a.m. Do I have a mover? Member Hahn and Member Hall and the mayor, and all those in favor? Carried. And now we move in camera. Let me just wait a moment. And we're back from in camera, and just reporting on that, the board moved into closed session to discuss the following, and we did. One item in accordance with the municipal procedure bylaw to approve an in-camera meeting minutes, and one item pursuant to section 44(2)(b of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 as amended regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including members of the police service or any other employees of the board. And I don't have to get a mover or seconder for that, that's just reporting back. Okay, fantastic. And let's see, we're back to open session. And scheduled meetings. Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 at 10 a.m. and Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 at 10 a.m. And that moves us to adjournment. Recommendation, the meeting adjourned at 11:15, moved by the mayor, seconded by Member Hall. All those in favor? And that is approved, and we are adjourned. Thank you.